So once you have your app downloaded and activated, you're going to go ahead and open the app. And the first thing you're going to do is you're going to set up your Bluetooth connection to auto connect every time. Just long press the Bluetooth icon. Make sure that auto connect app on startup is enabled. That way you don't have to be manually connecting it. Going forward, you hit search while your bike is on, and you'll see e-bike. Then you hit stop search and choose e-bike, and automatically all the parameters will load onto the GLE dashboard app. And you hit with the arrow back to take you to the home screen. So what is the home screen all about? Well, it's got a lot of features. Number one, you can see your battery voltage. Obviously you'll know what battery you're using because it'll tell you that at 0% the voltage is going to be 48, and at 100% it's going to be 67, so you know that that is a 60 volt battery. But let's say you want to change the battery voltage, you're riding a 72 volt, you just long press. And that takes you to the battery voltage selection screen. Here you can configure your battery voltage. You don't really need to change anything from cell 100% charge voltage. You don't need to change cell nominal charge voltage or cell 0% charge. It's already set up there for you. And so you're going to pick 72. For example, if this was a 72, that would be a 20S battery. That is 20S as in 20 cells in series. But right now we have a 60 volt battery, so we're going to choose 16S, and then hit save. And that is it. That is literally all you have to do when setting up your battery voltage. Now, temperature thresholds of your motor. That is very simple. You just long press motor, and it'll take you to the motor temp threshold section, where you can change where it will reduce power and where it will cut off power. And you can put that to be more aggressive or more conservative. Let's say I wanted to reduce power at 130 degrees Celsius, and I wanted to completely cut off at 145 Celsius, and that is it. The parameters are saved. Now you have your new motor temperature thresholds. The controller ones are locked by the factory. It's to prevent people from hot rodding the controller and eventually burning it. Now here in the settings history, let's say you've configured a bunch of settings already. You can save them and you can give them a different name. You can say street mode settings or racing settings, or for example trail ride settings, and then you can save them and restore them from this screen. So a really cool feature to be able to back up and restore all your settings instead of changing a bunch of settings depending on your riding conditions or environment. Alright, so let's go back to the home screen. We have the day and night mode. So this is your day screen. If it's very sunny outside, you'll be able to see your screen. And then you can lock your screen if you want. And obviously we have our driving modes. For example, when I give the bike to somebody, I like to give it to them in neutral. And even if I hit the throttle, right now I'm using a simple throttle because I can hold it with one hand. As you can see, I am not able to engage the motor. So once I put it in drive, I can engage the motor. And if I put it again in neutral, it will not engage. I am hitting the throttle, but it's not engaging. And then of course, park, it will lock the motor. And then reverse, it'll reverse the direction of the motor. Now the reverse speed is limited for safety reasons, but it will go reverse. You don't want to be going reverse at 40 miles an hour. So it is limited, but very useful, especially if you're on the trails or doing some enduro stuff. Okay, so now let's take a look at these buttons. One is on the left and one is on the right. This one is to turn on and turn off regen right on the fly. So right now I'm going to use my regen. As you can see, it stopped the motor. It stops the motor. But then let's say I'm on a trail ride or something and I don't want regen. That's it. That's all I have to do to turn it off. So I'm engaging the motor now. and as you can see, it's not stopping the motor. The regen is off. Really cool feature, very useful. And then here is my speed modes, ludicrous and street. You set your own ludicrous speed, ludicrous being your fastest power setting, and street is your eco mode power setting. So let me repeat that. These are power settings. You set them to whatever you want. Ludicrous, for example, on a bypass battery is about 7,000 watts. On a street eco mode, usually 3,400, but you can change that real easily, obviously by long pressing. Long press, and here you can go to your street mode and ludicrous mode levels. Here I have it set to 3,800 and 7,000. If I want to change that to 3,000, just type it in. And then if I want to set my ludicrous top speed, top power to 8,000, that is it. That is all I have to do, folks. It's that simple. That is, I don't have to reboot my bike. I don't have to reboot the bike or the controller. That is literally all you have to do. And now your ludicrous is at 8,000 and your street mode eco is at 3,000. And just as easy as long pressing if you want to change them. Real quick, real easy, real simple. No laptops needed, no firmware changes needed going forward. Once your controller has been set up by us, you'll be able to do everything from the interface. Now, also for Regen, and you just long press, it takes you to the Regen brake tune. Now, when you're doing a Regen brake tune, obviously you want to create some deadband value, and that is because for vibration purposes, you don't want to accidentally hit the brakes. So we recommend a deadband value of 0.15. So we're going to show you how to do a Regen brake tune. Cool feature of the GLE dashboard is that you can see your real-time brake voltage here. So if you're not sure if your brake voltage wire is working or it's severed, you can actually see the real-time voltage right here. And as you can see, as I'm hitting it, it's changing. Okay. Now let's tune it. I'm going to create some deadband of 0.15. If you put a deadband of 0, your brake is going to turn on with any little vibration. That's a bad idea. So always create some deadband value. I'm going to hit start, and I'm going to hit the lever 3 times, and then I'm going to look at my averages and make sure that they make sense. 0.86 and 4.22 volts. Yep, that makes sense. And that is it. That's all you have to do for the Regen brake tune. Now your brake is tuned perfectly. Now another cool feature is braking modes. So braking modes, you can have separate Regen brake. So that's this separate throttle region where you can control the Regen brake. So if that's what you want, you hit save. And now obviously you have your Regen brake. I'm going to give it some throttle. I'm going to go back home, give it some throttle, and then you'll see that I have I'm slowing down the motor with my Regen brake. Now let's long press and show you what else we have. Under that braking mode, E-brake cutoff, roll off throttle Regen, and wheelie mode. So roll off throttle Regen, you can have them both working at the same time. So what does that mean? That means that if I let off the throttle, the bike will slow down, the motor will regen, and I can have separate Regen brake at the same time. So I can manipulate the brake with a separate Regen, but at the same time by rolling off the throttle, or if I want to just roll off throttle Regen, I can choose that and hit save. Now that's saved. Now you have to set how much power you want for your engine braking. That's what throttle off Regen is. That's what throttle off Regen is. It's engine braking. And so usually about 5% is pretty good. So we're going to leave it at that. And then of course maximum braking torque. That is for your Regen as well, for your Regen. And then here you have your regenerative battery current, 25%. So let's hit save. I'll go over this again. So I'm going to show you what happens now. Now when I let off the throttle, It automatically regens by itself. I don't need to hit the regen. And my separate regen is not working because I disabled it. As you can see, my throttle off regen is only activated right now. But now let's activate. Let's go ahead and activate both separate regen and throttle off regen. Let's increase the braking torque. That's another beautiful thing about this, is that we've separated current from braking torque. So you don't need a lot of battery current to have locking brakes. You just need to be able to manipulate your braking torque. And I'm going to do my throttle off regen. I'm going to increase that to, let's say for example, 7%. And of course you can set it to whatever you want. Ideally, engine braking torque, which is throttle off regen, you probably want to set that at 5%, but this is just an example so you can see what you can do with the GLE dashboard. Regen brake speed, 0. That means that you want to be able to lock your brakes. But let's say if you don't want your brakes to lock when you hit the regen at full force, you would set that to 2 kilometers or 3 kilometers, and then the wheel will not lock as you fully engage the brake. At least it won't lock as easily as if you had set this to 0. Alright, so I hit save. I go back. And let me also select the braking mode. I'm going to select separate regen as well, so you can see that you can do separate regen brake, left hand throttle, as well as roll off throttle regen at the same time, and control how they feel individually. Alright, so I'm going to give it some gas. As you can see, when I let off, it stops. And now I'm going to use the throttle off regen, the other separate regen. So as you can see, I can manipulate both throttle off regen and I can use separate regen at the same time. Very, very useful feature exclusive to the GLE dashboard. Now we have your speedometer and your RPM gauge. Really important to have an RPM gauge, especially if you're going really fast for long periods of time. You want to make sure that you're keeping an eye on your RPMs. Here you can change the odometer maximum speed limit shown. So I'm going to go and change it to 60. Max RPM 10,000, I'll leave that the same. And then the regen graphic that shows up when I hit regen, I'm going to change that to 10. And another cool feature is you can create your temperature buzzer. So basically, if your temperature thresholds are hit for your motor, it will give you a buzz. It'll make a buzzing sound, which is awesome. And then Fahrenheit and Celsius, if you're in the Americas, a lot of us still use Celsius, even though we're in the Americas. And you can change from miles to kilometers. And that is it. So, as you can see, my odometer now only goes up to 60. And I'm going to show you the graphic animation of the regen. It's probably difficult to see the animation of the regen because there's no force moving the bike forward. It's simply sitting on my table. But normally you would see a red graphic right here show up as you're regenning. But like I said, it's sitting on the table right now and there's nothing pushing the bike forward. So it basically just comes to a straight halt and you don't really see the graphic. But when you're on the bike, you'll see that graphic show up. If I didn't cover this, your trip meter is down here, and it resets every time you start your bike. Oh, one important thing you may want to calibrate is your speed, so that it matches GPS speed. The way to do that is very simple. You go to your settings, and then you go to the motor icon, and let's say for example the GPS speed is faster than what is showing on the speedometer. Real easy way to calibrate that is your gear ratio. Everyone has different sprockets, different wheel sizes, so it's important you calibrate your speedometer. So let's say for example the GPS speed is faster than your speedometer, then you're going to decrease your gear ratio. Start doing it by 0.10 until you get close to your GPS speed. If your speedometer speed is faster than your GPS, then you're going to want to increase your gear ratio by 0.10 at a time, save, and then keep going up until it matches the GPS speed. And that's pretty much it. That's how you calibrate your speedometer. Going back to the home screen, here are your motor amps and your battery amps. You can see that in the home screen. And then here you have your watt meter in real time if you want to look at that. You can see your watts in real time here. And if you long press, it'll expand. And then of course if you want to lock your screen, you can, but there's really no way you can actually toggle these buttons while riding. It's very difficult, especially the driving modes, because you have to, it's a two-step process: drive, then hit the mode. So you're not accidentally going to go into reverse or anything, even if your screen is locked. It's a two-step process. You got to hit it twice and then make the selection. And now you're in reverse, now you're in drive, and then here you're in neutral. So a really cool feature. So let's say you get a fault, something's wrong with your controller. You're going to get a little yellow or red triangle pop up right here. And basically that'll tell you that something's wrong. Either your throttle is not working or something is not right. And the little pop-up will show up right here and it'll start flashing, and you just long press it and it'll take you to the faults page. And then you can quickly diagnose your issues. This is very useful. Instead of guessing what the issue is and sending 10,000 emails figuring out what the problem is, now you'll be able to know exactly what the issue is with your controller right off your home screen. It'll pop up right there, and then it'll take you to the faults and you can read the faults. Really cool feature, almost like having an ODB on your bike. Now let's go over the settings pages. The first settings page is where you set your speedometer. We've already gone over this. The second icon, the little triangle, that's your faults, warnings, and your motor temperature thresholds, and of course where you can save and back up all your parameters and restore all your parameters. So as I've mentioned before, if you have different riding profiles when you're on your street track or a motocross track, you just save them in here, give them a name, and you can restore them with one simple push of a button. Really cool feature. And you've got your throttle tune. I did not go over throttle tune. Same concept as Regen tune. You start your throttle tune, you hit start throttle tune. You can see your real-time voltage. When you hit start throttle tune, it disengages the motor. So let's do that. You can see the real-time voltage right here as I hit the throttle. And you see the check marks. Very easy, very simple, and as you can see, here's my low average voltage and upper voltage, maximum throttle voltage, and I hit save. And that is it. That's literally, that's all you have to do to tune your throttle. Very simple procedure, not rocket science. Alright, so we're back at the home screen. Let's go back to the settings icons. So right after the throttle tune is your ABS section, which I've already gone over. This is where you do your Regen brake tune, and you select what kind of Regen braking modes you want. Or I almost forgot, maybe you just want to not have any Regen. So here is Wheelie Mode. Let's say you're a stunner and you'd like to practice your stunts on your bike, and obviously you don't want Regen. It's difficult to practice stunts when you have your Regen on. You hit save. That's it. Now your Regens are all turned off. That means that when you hit the brakes, it will only work the hydraulic brakes on your bike. The calipers on your brakes. That's it. It's not going to engine brake or regen brake. That is it. And as you can see, when you go to the home screen, the regen toggle is off. And even if you reboot your bike, it's all going to be saved. Even if you don't open the app, it's going to be saved until you change it. That's the beauty of the GLE dashboard. Okay, let's go back to the ABS section. And now we can do e-brake motor cutoff. That's right, just like the Sur-ron, you can select e-brake motor cutoff. So there are two receptacles in the new harness. They're the color of red, and you can insert any 2-pin e-brake cutoff with the Higo or Gillette connectors, and you hit save. And so what's going to happen is when you hit the brakes, it's going to cut off the brake. It's going to cut off the engine, similar to the Sur-ron. That is also a feature that you can enable with the GLE dashboard. Very cool feature. And then of course you just hit save, and that's it, and pretty much now you have e-brake cutoff. Now obviously if you have the e-brake cutoff feature, it is you have to remove the red plug that is inside the two receptacles, and therefore you will not be able to engage reverse. If you use that feature, at least you won't be able to engage it while in drive. You'll have to hit reverse, and then you'll have to squeeze levers. You have to hit reverse, squeeze levers, and then you'll be able to go reverse. But you'll never be able to go reverse right on the fly when you have that feature enabled. But still, you'll still have reverse. So just one additional step. That is the braking modes. And then of course, I'll explain this further. Regen brake speed, if you set it to 0, that will allow you to lock your wheels when you hit the regen brake. Regen battery current, that is the percent of current used for regen. Typically 25% is it's pretty good. 30%, I don't think you need more than 30 or 40%. Maximum braking torque, you can set this to as high as 100%. 40% is ideal. That's enough to lock your brakes. Engine braking torque, that is for your throttle off regen, and that will basically, most people use about 5% for throttle off regen, but you can use 2%, 3%, 4%. I think anything more than 10%, when you let off the throttle, you kind of get jerked forward. So 5% is ideal if you want to use throttle off regen. And of course, like I've explained before, you can use throttle off regen and separate regen at the same time. Pretty cool feature. And this is just testing stuff. Do not mess with this. All right, let's go to the motor icon. This is where you set up your motor. Now this is going to load the existing settings of the controller, and as you can see, the maximum rated phase peak right now for the BAC 4000 is 431. Maximum field weakening, I don't really like to use that. Field weakening is only for top speed runs. It's to increase the voltage of the battery theoretically, not physically. And what it does, it creates faster RPMs, and it's used for increasing speed. So I usually leave it to 0% unless I need a lot of speed. I'm on the street track and I'll use that, but off-road I really don't use field weakening. Okay, these, do not change these at all if you don't need to. If you change these, the functionality will no longer work as intended, so do not change these. Rated motor RPM speed, the auto tune feature automatically knows what kind of RPMs your motor should function at. Usually it's between 5,000 and 6,000 depending on the voltage that you've connected to the controller. If you're using 72, when you do the auto tune feature, the RPMs climb to about 6,200. Obviously, if you want top speed, folks, 72 volts is the way to go. I'm going to repeat that. Top speed, you need higher voltage. Okay, really cool feature. This is awesome. Speed regulator mode. So right now we're going to select, for example, torque with speed limiting. I'm going to show you what happens when I select torque with speed limiting and how that changes the home screen. I'm going to hit save, and then I'm going to create some maximum speed limits for standard speed and vehicle ludicrous speed. So I've created a 10 mile per hour speed limit and a 75 mile per hour speed limit. Now look at what happens. I get a new button. I get a fast and slow button. Not to be confused with power. Power is force and torque and energy. Fast and slow is speed limits. Why is that important? Well, let's say you're towing stuff or you're pulling your friend who ran out of battery. Well, you want to put it on slow, but you need all the power that you can get. You leave it in ludicrous, and now the maximum speed you're going to go is 10 miles per hour, but you're using the full power of your bike. So it's easier to tow him if you're using this feature. Same thing if you're delivering or hauling stuff with your vehicle. This controller can be put on any kind of vehicle. Or you're doing food delivery in a place like Seattle or San Francisco where you got to go up some really gnarly hills, but you don't want to go past 22 and get dinged, and obviously they'll say you're not on a bike. A lot of individuals use this for delivery, and so they want to say that they're on a bike when they're doing Postmates or Uber Eats. Well, now you can create speed limits and still have the power to go up that hill real easily. So real cool feature. And then of course fast, that is your fast speed limit. So when you set slow, it'll be the slow speed limit that you set in that setting, and then when you hit fast, it'll be up to 75 miles per hour speed limit that you set in the settings. And I'll go back and I'll show you where that is. I'm going to demonstrate. I'm going to show you where that is again. That was in the motor. And that little circle icon is basically loading the existing settings on the controller. There's a lot of them. And here's where you set those speed limits. So to demonstrate, I've got it at 10 miles per hour. Let's just say 5 miles per hour. And I'm going to do 75 miles per hour. And then that's it. I'm going to hit save. Okay, so I've set it to slow. As you see, I'm going to give it some throttle. As you can see, the motor is spinning very slow, but it's using all the power, all the 7,000 watts of power. And then I'm going to hit fast, and now the motor is spinning really fast and all the power. And so I'll do that again, slow. So you can see I've set it to about 4 or 5 miles an hour. I've got full throttle. So really cool feature for towing, hauling, going up hills, delivering cargo. Real awesome feature. Now if you don't want any speed limits, real easy. Just go back to your settings. Go to the motor icon. And then you can just simply select under speed regulator mode, torque mode, no speed limit. Hit save. And now you don't have any speed limits. The icon has disappeared. So if you're letting your son, nephew, anyone borrow your bike, it's cool. It's good to have the speed limit option enabled so that they don't go too fast. Or maybe it's a big person and they need all the power they can get, but you don't want them to go too fast. Then simply set your speed limits, and that way they can use all the power of the motor but not necessarily go too fast. So a real cool feature. Hope you guys like that feature. Okay, moving on. One of the reasons that we decided to work with the ASI controller platform is because it's the only true sine wave controller with all these features. And you can use any motor that is out there with your bike. So any third-party motor that is going to be available in the future, you can easily configure it with the GLE dashboard. You don't need a PC, you don't need a computer, and this is a section where you can easily tune the new motor, so or your existing motor. So right now I'm going to show you how to do a motor tune and get it tuned perfectly right in less than 2 minutes, actually in less than a minute. So you're going to analyze the motor resistance by hitting the run now, and it's done its thing. As you can see, it's populated the information. You hit save results, and that has been saved. Now the Hall positions and wiring, real easy. This is going to spin the motor, and as you can see, the motor is spinning. I don't know if you can hear it, but it is spinning. And once it stops spinning, this information is going to be loaded. There's a lot of new motors coming out. That's why this is so important to have. And as you can see, the information has been loaded, and that is it. Your motor is completely tuned. That's all that it takes. Literally less than a minute to tune a new motor, whether it's a Sur-ron motor or any third-party motor that comes out into the market. Easily tune it, get up and going in no time. And we're pretty much done with the motor icon settings. Let's go to the battery icon settings. Now here's where you change your battery voltage. Now the cool thing about the GLE dashboard is that, let's say you're using a different chemistry other than lithium ion, you can actually change the chemistry voltage per cell, and therefore you can use any kind of chemistry that comes about in terms of any type of battery, like lithium cobalt, lipo, lithium ion, which is what we're currently using for most Sur-ron batteries. But lipo, they all have different nominal voltages and different upper voltage thresholds. Real easy to configure. For example, the cell nominal voltage on a lithium cobalt is very different than a lithium ion, and here you'll be able to change that. Here, cell 100% charge voltage 4.2. Obviously it's set for lithium ion. So nominal charge voltage 3.7 volts. That's obviously set for a lithium ion. The nominal voltage of a lithium ion is 3.6 to 3.7, and then usually a cell is pretty dead at 3 volts. But you can change that to 2.75 if you want to go deep into the cycle. It would automatically give you a little bit more range, but it's probably not good for your battery to go beyond 3 volts per cell. But if you want to, you can. Or if you want to be conservative and you just want to go to 3.5 volts, then you can do that too. You just change your 0% charge voltage to 3.5, and the little icon will tell you what 0% is when your battery is at 3.5 volts, and it'll start doing its throttling when you get to that low state of a charge voltage. So really cool to be able to do all that real easily. And then of course, real simple, most people, you're just going to be going from 16S to 20S. 20S 72 volts, and you're not going to be changing none of this information usually, and you just hit save, and that is it. That's literally all that you have to do. So let's say, for example, you want to ride your bike in ludicrous mode. You set it for something crazy like 15,000 watts, but you don't want to use all of it all the time. You can actually set your ludicrous battery current to about 80%. So that's like level 8 when you're going through levels 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can set that to level 8, which would be 80%. Level 7 is 70%. And that'll all be corresponding to the little toggle buttons. So you can easily just say ludicrous mode. I'm going to set it to 15,000 watts, for example. So I'll put 15,000 watts here, but I only want to be at 80% of battery current. So you can just put it 80% there. Boom, save, done. Real simple. And then you can change that whenever you want. Really cool feature. So very configurable options here. And if I haven't mentioned this before, this is where you set your street mode power levels and your ludicrous power levels. And then that's for this little toggle button right here. And you can go from street to ludicrous in a touch of a button. Okay, so moving on from battery. Now this is one of my favorite features where you can set your torque settings. We've separated phase current from torque, which is very important. Sometimes when the bike is too jumpy, it's because your positive motoring torque ramp is a little too low. For example, the higher you go in power, the less manageable it has become to stand up on the bike, for example. It's very jumpy. Well, you can change that. You simply just increase your positive motoring torque ramp to smooth out that throttle response. Ideally, when you're at 15 kilowatts, you probably want to be at 150 milliseconds Boom, and now your bike is less jumpy. If you are doing a motocross race and you need to be snappy, probably 75 milliseconds is ideal. Boom, done. That is an amazing feature to have, to be able to smooth out your throttle response and the hit you get when you crack open that throttle. And that is pretty much it. Usually you're not going to mess with any of these settings. If you have any questions, shoot us an email. And then of course I am saving the best for last, I think, telemetry. So here we can export our telemetry information under telemetry, graphical data, and export. So here I can see voltage sag, RPM speed in real time. So let's just take a look at voltage, battery voltage, based off battery amps. So I'm going to hit start telemetry, and now it's going to graph my battery voltage in green, and you can see my amps in red. And then I can analyze this information. I hit stop and then hit the peak button, and here I can see every bit of information that was being shown in the graphical display. At 410 watts I was doing 415 RPMs, the battery voltage was 50 volts, the battery amps was 8, the motor phase amps was 9.75, the controller temperature, motor temperature, miles per hour. And I can export that information real easily. You can export, successfully exported that information and saves it into a subfolder in the phone, and you can easily grab it and email it and analyze it. Really cool feature. Great way to dyno your bike and your battery, to see if you have a quality battery. For example, you want to see how bad the voltage sag is at a particular amps. So if you've got a third-party battery and you're not really sure if it's a really good battery, now you can dyno test that battery and compare the graph information with other users who have the GLE dashboard and are testing their batteries. So now you can see what battery is the best battery in the market. When you start sharing that information, you can see, okay, XYZ battery has the least amount of voltage sag at 200 amps. That's very important information. It can tell you whether they're using cheap nickel strips or they're actually self-fusing the battery. If it's a good quality, you'll be able to know right off the bat if you have a good battery by seeing how bad the voltage sag is at certain amps or watts. Really important feature to have. And then of course you have all these other things that you can look at and share. Okay folks, that is the home screen. Again, easy on, off, Regen toggle button, power settings, ludicrous and street. Easily change them from the home screen. It'll take you right to the settings page. Easily change your battery voltage. Easily change your motor temperature thresholds and create buzzer sounds. Let us know how it goes for you. Some of you may, actually a lot of you may need a firmware update so that all of these features work as shown in this video. If you have a Gen 2 harness, please watch the video in the description, how to get your Gen 2 harness to be a Gen 3 harness. All units purchased and shipped after January 15th of 2022. So all units shipped after January 15th of 2022, you will not need to do a firmware update, and you will not need the modifications done on your harness because those will already come with the Gen 3 harness. Pretty much everyone with a Gen 2 harness, which were units that were shipped out, I think in October of 2021, has a Gen 2 harness. All you have to do is watch the video in the description below, and then that will get you up to speed into a Gen 3 harness. Real easy. It's just 2 simple modifications, and then of course a firmware update. So you'll have to schedule a remote tune session to install the latest firmware, and then you should be good to go. You'll be able to utilize all the features as shown in this video with your bike. All right, if you have any questions, please feel free to contact us at support@glengineering.co. Again, that's support@glengineering.co. Have a great day.